What's going on YouTube, Gen X, Divinebrown? Remedy, I already know what you're going to say, but this is my last response to Divinebrown on this topic because I really think that I've put out there how I feel. Divine, before I get started, you may want to consider making videos of your own because you do have a lot to say. Um, and I know personally, I would have an easier time following you if you put it in audio format because you do share a lot, and that's a good thing. You know, certain people, yeah, they're better off commenting because they don't really say a lot, but you have a lot to say. So you should consider making videos. It's not that hard. My process is very bootleg, and I can let you know how I make my videos because it's very simple. Very basic. Uh, quite frankly, you can be up and running with $10 if you're really considering making videos. Um, anyways, Divine, I understand where you're coming from. I truly do. You think that I don't, or you think that there's areas that I'm overlooking, and I'm saying I don't. I'm not trying to speak for all black men, but for me, I understand where you're coming from. And what I'm trying to tell you is that across the board, African features are not necessarily ideal in America. Whether you're black, African, from South America, from the Caribbean area, it's just not ideal. And you just can't look at skin color because you're going to find black men who don't necessarily have African features, and you're going to find black women who don't have African features who still have dark skin, right? Now, what you don't want to, I don't want to say don't, but I don't know if you've comprehended what I've said. What you don't want to factor in is the fact that black men who have African features are also not being checked for. See, the problem is we don't really come on and vocalize it because it's something that you're used to. Go ahead and talk to any sort of black man in America, right? And they're all going to tell you the same story, whether it was growing up and going to school over here, the black women weren't really checking for him, and it was more so non-black women, or the guys who come over from Africa or from some other non-U.S. country to live here, they'll tell you the same thing. They know that from the word go, A, I'm going to be checked for by other African women if they're not Americanized, okay? B, I'm going to be checked for women who grew up in Europe, okay, or just in the eastern half of the world, whether they're black, African, white, it doesn't really matter. And I say that because if you're living on the eastern half of the hemisphere and you do run across somebody who's black, the odds are that they're going to be African, right? That's why if you go to London and you run into somebody who's black, odds are that they're going to be African, right? So they're more so used to that sort of look. They know that if anything, they're going to be checked for by non-black women in the U.S., and at the bottom, it's going to be African-American women. And with that being said, those chicks are probably going to be the older crowd, right? I have uncles who are dating African-American women, are married to them in terms of like their second or third marriage, and they're older, so it's not as if they're with the young chick, right? It's not as if they're having kids or whatnot. It's one of those, we're older, we're just trying to chill and relax, and we're beyond all that. We're just trying to hang out, right? And go to the jazz club and just do all that grown adult stuff. So we know this, but like I said, we don't really vocalize it, right? Because it's almost a no-brainer. And because we don't vocalize it, Divine, y'all take it as if it's accepted. So because we don't vocalize it, you assume that black women accept black men in all shapes and forms, but in reality, they're not accepted in all shapes and forms when it comes to how they look, right? That's why I'm trying to tell you, I understand where you are coming from. And oftentimes you'll overlook the features of a black man that is with or married to a non-black woman. You'll throw that out and you'll simply look at his skin color, or you'll simply look at the fact that he may have money, and you'll equate that to him rejecting black women. You'll equate that to him being conditioned, or him feeling that now that he has money, he has to go off and get the trophy. But you'll never concede to the point that he probably wasn't being checked for, right? Simply because the women didn't like how he looked, right? If T.O. was, a regular college cat, he was an engineer or whatnot, how many black women can honestly say that they would be checking for him? I don't like the way he looks. He's cool, but, I don't like those features on men. I like dark skin, but I just don't like African features. And I've heard that said before, right? But now that he's successful, right, y'all take it as if he rejected black women. And the man has already said, yeah, growing up, I was told that I was too black and I was ugly. And he said that, right? But you guys will conveniently throw that out. And what I'm trying to say is it's there. It's a problem on both sides. So a lot of black women can't necessarily feel like they're alone and isolated and no one knows how they feel, right? These same black men, they've adapted. And quite frankly, yeah, if you're a black woman and you don't have that ideal African-American look, you need to adapt. And I'll say that again, you need to adapt. There's no point in complaining because it's really not going to change, right? The media is not going to change because we don't own it. And black women across the board don't want to take that stand. And that's why we've continuously said, anytime you want to throw up a beautiful black woman, it's the black woman dipped in chocolate. Or excuse me, it's the white girl dipped in chocolate. And it doesn't really matter if her features are naturally more so European, so she didn't have any sort of cosmetic surgery. She feels good about herself, or she got accepted as beautiful because she aligns with the white standard of beauty, regardless of if it's man-made or natural. Hence the whole white woman dipped in chocolate. I can care less if she was born with those features. She's promoted, or she thinks she's hot because she knows she gets the pass in terms of what's beautiful in the European world. End of story. Right? So like I said, your best bet is to do what black men do with African features. Adapt. Go talk to African men. Go talk to white men that are not American. What y'all will throw out is the fact that it's not American white men that are embracing black women with African features. It's the white men that didn't grow up in America. So they're more so foreign, because I've seen it happen. It's not a surprise to me. I've seen the cat that grew up somewhere in Europe, or the white guy that grew up in some South Africa, or Ghana, or even New Zealand, or somewhere that's non-American, right? Like black women with African features, because you have to understand that if you're from that side of the globe and you're running around or you're dealing with people that are black, they're going to be African. So check for those men, right? Y'all will fail to identify the sort of white man that's actually with black women. You will take anything and say that, oh, see, it's acceptable. And I'm like, yo, that white guy's not even American, right? He's not even American. But yeah, you can go off and, you can find some European cat or whatever that likes how you look, and then you'll be happy. It's as simple as that. Right? You can sit there and get mad at black men all day, but once again, you're doing so because you've conveniently, forgot the fact that you don't accept those features out of your own men as well. Last point I want to make. I've seen, and this is real talk, I've seen black women, African or not, who do have African features, state that they don't like men who have their features. See, that gets thrown out. Going back to the whole, I have black African features, so I automatically like those same features in the men that I want to date and possibly marry. I've had conversations, or I've low-key understood the dating preferences of whether they're African or African American, and I pay attention to, okay, how they look, and I'm like, yo, you're sitting up here and you have the African features, And you're telling me directly or indirectly that you don't even like it out of your own men. And a lot of y'all conveniently throw that out, right? So I just have to really put that one out there as little, what do you have to say about that? So anyways, that's my video. I really have no more to say on this issue because, as we all know, this is a log jam, and it never really gets anywhere. Because quite frankly, there's a lot of points that black women don't want to concede, right? And black men, whether we like it or not, yeah, we'll come on and talk about conditioning, and it's not easy to say, I understand that, but we'll come on and concede some of our issues as it relates to what's acceptable out of black women. Yeah, we know that we played a part. We know that our hands aren't squeaky clean, right? But for a lot of y'all don't want to keep it real with yourself. And you assume, or you take this position that it doesn't matter how you look as a black man, we love you all, and you guys don't want to return the favor to your own women. How fair is that? And I'm saying that a lot of that is BS. So let me know how you feel, Divinebrown. Like I said before, you may want to consider making videos because you do have a lot to say, and I think you would actually have a pretty decent following if you did. So y'all take it easy. God bless.